Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we are diving into a very important and developing story that has caught the attention of the entire world. Egypt has launched bombers at Israel, targeting several military bases and leaving them in flames. This event marks one of the most intense escalations in the region in recent years, and the consequences are expected to ripple far beyond the Middle East. In this video, we are going to break down what happened, why it happened, the background behind the conflict, the immediate response, and what this could mean for the future of the region and for global stability. The news first broke with reports of loud explosions inside Israel after Egyptian bombers carried out a series of coordinated airstrikes. Witnesses described fire rising from military compounds, thick black smoke covering the skies, and emergency response units rushing to contain the situation. According to initial reports, at least several Israeli military facilities sustained heavy damage, with some buildings completely reduced to rubble. The strikes appear to have been carefully planned, targeting critical infrastructure within Israel's defense network. This marks a dramatic shift in Egypt's stance. For decades, Egypt and Israel have maintained a cold but functional peace, following the Camp David Accords of 1979. While relations were never warm, both countries largely avoided direct conflict and instead maintained a pragmatic approach, especially when it came to shared security concerns. That is why this sudden escalation has shocked observers worldwide. Analysts are already calling it the most significant confrontation between the two nations in more than 40 years. To understand why this is happening now, we need to look at the broader context. Tensions in the Middle East have been rising steadily in recent months. Israel has been engaged in military operations on multiple fronts, most notably against groups in Gaza and Lebanon. These actions have sparked outrage across the Arab world, with protests erupting in Cairo, Amman, and other major cities. Many Egyptians have demanded that their government take a stronger stance in response to Israel's operations. The political pressure on Cairo has been immense, and it now appears the Egyptian leadership has decided to take direct military action. The airstrikes carried out by Egypt were not random. Military analysts note that the bombers targeted bases that housed air defense systems, command centers, and supply depots. By hitting these facilities, Egypt may have sought to weaken Israel's ability to respond quickly, or to send a message that they have the capability to strike at the heart of Israel's defense infrastructure. This is not the type of attack meant for show. It was a calculated demonstration of force. Israel's immediate response has been one of shock and determination. Officials in Tel Aviv quickly convened emergency meetings, and the Prime Minister declared that Israel would respond with overwhelming force. The Israeli Defense Forces have already mobilized troops and are reportedly preparing for a counter-offensive. Air raid sirens were heard in several cities, and residents were urged to remain in shelters. The mood across Israel is tense, with many fearing that a full-scale war is now inevitable. International reactions have also been swift. The United States has condemned the Egyptian strikes and reaffirmed its commitment to Israel's security. European nations have called for restraint, warning that a broader war in the Middle East could have catastrophic consequences not just for the region, but for the global economy. Oil prices have already spiked in the aftermath of the news, with markets reacting nervously to the possibility of prolonged instability in one of the world's most important energy corridors. On the Egyptian side, government officials have justified the strikes by citing Israel's actions in Gaza and accusations of aggression against Arab civilians. Egyptian media outlets have framed the attack as a defense of Palestinian rights and an assertion of Arab solidarity. Crowds in Cairo and Alexandria were seen celebrating the news, waving flags and chanting slogans. For many Egyptians, this represents a bold step by their government, one that signals a new chapter in regional politics. But the risks for Egypt are immense. Israel has one of the most powerful militaries in the region, with advanced air defense systems, a highly trained army, and nuclear capabilities. Any prolonged conflict between Egypt and Israel would not only devastate both countries, but could drag in other regional powers. The possibility of a wider Middle East war is now being openly discussed by analysts. Questions are being raised about how Iran, Turkey, Saudi Arabia, and other key players might respond if this conflict escalates further. Historically, the Middle East has been a flashpoint for global conflicts. The wars of 1948, 1967, and 1973 all had worldwide repercussions. In particular, the 1973 Yom Kippur War, when Egypt and Syria launched a surprise attack on Israel, led to a massive global energy crisis and reshaped international alliances. Many observers are already drawing comparisons between that war and the current situation, noting that once again Egypt has taken direct military action against Israel. The echoes of history are hard to ignore, and the potential outcomes could be just as dramatic. As this conflict unfolds, the humanitarian cost is also a growing concern. Civilians on both sides of the border are at risk as military operations intensify. Reports from Israel indicate that some residential areas near targeted bases were also affected, with families displaced from their homes. Human rights organizations are warning of the possibility of large-scale displacement and casualties if the fighting continues. Meanwhile, in Gaza and other parts of the region, fears are rising that violence will spill over, creating an even broader humanitarian crisis. Diplomatic efforts are already underway to try and prevent further escalation. The United Nations has called an emergency session, and several countries are pushing for immediate negotiations. However, given the intensity of the strikes and the strong rhetoric coming from both Cairo and Tel Aviv, it is unclear whether either side is ready to step back. This situation remains highly volatile, and the next few days will be crucial in determining whether this becomes a short-lived clash or a protracted war. It is also important to note the psychological impact of these strikes. For Israelis, the idea of Egyptian bombers successfully striking inside their territory is deeply unsettling. Israel has long prided itself on having one of the most advanced defense systems in the world, including the Iron Dome and other cutting-edge technologies. The fact that Egyptian aircraft managed to bypass or overwhelm these defenses raises serious questions about Israel's vulnerability. For Egyptians, this action is being seen as a demonstration of national strength and resilience, a message that they are not afraid to challenge a powerful adversary. The role of technology in this conflict cannot be overlooked. Modern warfare is increasingly shaped by drones, cyber attacks, and precision-guided weapons. While the Egyptian strikes involved traditional bombers, there is speculation that electronic warfare and cyber operations may also have played a role in disrupting Israel's defenses. Both nations have sophisticated technological capabilities, and the possibility of cyber warfare being deployed alongside physical attacks adds another layer of complexity to the conflict. Looking ahead, there are several possible scenarios. One possibility is that Israel responds with overwhelming force, launching massive airstrikes against Egyptian military infrastructure and pushing the two nations into a full-scale war. Another possibility is that international pressure convinces both sides to step back and negotiate, leading to a fragile ceasefire. A third scenario could involve other regional players entering the conflict, either directly or indirectly, creating a much larger and more dangerous confrontation. Whatever the outcome, one thing is certain: the Middle East will not be the same after this. The decision by Egypt to launch bombers at Israel marks a turning point in regional politics, shattering decades of relative calm between the two countries. The world is now watching closely to see how Israel responds, how Egypt manages the risks, and whether the international community can step in to prevent catastrophe. As we continue to monitor this story, it is important to remember that behind the headlines are millions of ordinary people whose lives are being disrupted by the decisions of their governments. Families are seeking shelter, children are frightened, and communities are bracing for the unknown. The human cost of war is always the greatest tragedy, and as this conflict intensifies, the need for peace becomes ever more urgent. In the coming days, we can expect more updates, more reactions, and unfortunately, possibly more violence. What happens next will depend on the choices made by leaders in Cairo, Tel Aviv, Washington, and beyond. The world is standing at a crossroads, and the path chosen will shape the future not only of the Middle East, but of global security as a whole. So that's the situation as it stands right now. Egypt has launched bombers at Israel, striking military bases and leaving them in flames, sparking one of the most dangerous crises in decades. The stakes could not be higher, and the entire world is waiting to see what comes next. We will keep following this story closely and bring you updates as soon as they happen. Stay tuned, stay informed, and let's hope for a resolution that avoids the worst possible outcomes.